Before this video starts, I would recommend you to go watch the first video. Here you'll find the link, and in the description one too. Like and subscribe, and let's get into the video. Meanwhile, in Italy, Benito Mussolini, the dictator of Italy, was very unpopular. Mussolini was even kicked out of his own party, the one he started. The Allies saw this as a good opportunity to start the invasion of Axis-occupied Europe. So, on the 9th of July, 1943, the US 7th and the British 8th Army invaded the south of Italy, aka Sicily. The Germans knew that the Allies were going to land in Italy, so they had sent troops before the invasion. They had to defend the island at all costs. They used the rocky terrain, but the Allies were just too strong. The downfall of Nazi Europe now occurred on two fronts. On the other European front, Germany was losing pretty bad. The Soviets were now making more tanks, more planes, and they had more soldiers. The Germans tried one more attack to stop the retreat under the name Operation Citadel. Here, 1 million Germans stood against an army of 2.5 million Russians. And you guessed it, the Soviets won. The Russians just kept moving up to Berlin with an army of 6 million soldiers in total, spread over 2,400 kilometers. The Allied advance in Italy was a great success. They captured Rome, but this wasn't enough to defeat Germany. So on the 6th of June, 1944, Operation Overlord took place. This is also known as D-Day. The Germans knew that the Allies would invade France, but they didn't know where exactly. The Allies made them think that it would happen in Calais, the closest point between England and France. And they had some help from the weather. It was so bad that the Germans didn't expect an invasion. Then, in the night of June the 5th, they dropped soldiers by parachute into the beautiful region of Normandy. They were supposed to secure important bridges, so that the Allies could advance very fast. Then, in the early morning of the 6th, it was time for the landing on the beaches. These sectors were split in between the Allied countries. America got Omaha Beach, where the most casualties died, and Utah Beach. The British and Canadians got Gold, Sword, and Juno Beach. If you want to know how bloody and awful these landings were, you can watch the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan. I'm not going to include these images because they're very brutal, and if you're sensitive to blood or body parts, then don't watch it. Okay, back to the real history. The invasion was a success, and now Germany had to fight on three fronts. The tables had turned, and Hitler knew it. Now German cities were bombed. Hitler needed something to strike the Allies back. So he asked his rocket scientist, Werner von Braun, to make the Vergeltungswaffe 2 or Retribution Weapon 2. There was a first one, but it wasn't really that big of a success. It hit many cities, like London, Paris, and the port city of Antwerp. Soldiers were tired and hungry, supplies were low, and a break was needed. Hitler knew this and wanted to make advantage of this situation. His plan was to smash through the Allies in the Ardennes with a blitzkrieg and capture the port city of Antwerp. This was important, since the Allies shipped their supplies to that port, and no supplies means no food or ammo, which is needed in war. Hitler was certain that this would work, but his generals didn't. But nobody could speak against Hitler. So they said YOLO, and the Battle of the Bulge started. 200,000 Germans with 1,000 tanks outnumbered the Americans. The weather was also pretty bad. It was cold, and I mean very cold, around -6 on average. The weather also didn't allow the Air Force to help. It was a heavy battle, but because of a lack of resources on the German side and the weather clearing up, the Americans managed to beat the Germans. For Hitler, everything was lost. The Russians had eventually surrounded Berlin, where he was staying, and the Allies had crossed the Rhine. There was nothing he could do anymore. His dream and vision lasted for 5 bloody years. On April 30th, 1945, in his Führer bunker, Hitler killed himself together with his wife, Eva Braun. 2 days before this, Mussolini was killed. On the 28th of April, he was found in Giolini di Mezzegra in northern Italy. Europe was liberated. Now it was Japan's turn to be defeated. The Americans had two options. The first one was to invade Japan and probably sacrifice many of their own soldiers' lives. Or they could drop two new tech WMDs, weapons of mass destruction. This was called the A-bomb or atomic bomb. You wouldn't want your soldiers to die, so you would go for the second option, and that's what America did. 2 bombs were dropped. Little Boy was dropped on Hiroshima on the 6th of August, and the Fat Man on Nagasaki on the 9th of August. The bombs forced Japan to surrender. The war was over, the Axis surrendered, and there was peace. After the war, many things happened. Let's start in Germany. Officers of the German army and Nazi sympathizers, the heavy ones, like SS and party members, were convicted in the Nuremberg trials. Germany was split in two, and so was Berlin. The capital was split in between the Allies. In Japan, America occupied the country for 8 years. Fortunately, the relations between the countries has improved a lot. This conflict was responsible for 75 million deaths. If you want to know how these were spread, I would recommend you to go watch this video, link in the description. Thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and comment Fat Man if you watched till the end. Thank you and bye.